Hello and welcome to the Captain's Table. I am your host, Dawn Deckman Moeller, and today our guest is Stark Howell. Fun fact, we both grew up in Burbank, California, and we went to the same high school, John Burroughs. Our small town of Burbank is the home of some of the biggest studios in the industry. Stark's credits include work in TV and film for studios in Burbank such as Walt Disney, Warner Brothers, Nickelodeon, and our neighbor Universal. Stark is also the son of an actor and writer, Hoke Howell. Today we're going to learn about how he got into the biz and how he is paying tribute to the beloved Andy Griffith Show with his film Mayberry Man and upcoming series Mayberry Man the Series. Welcome, Stark.
Hi, Dawn. How are you?
I am doing great. It is so good to have you on this show.
Yeah, and you didn't mention we went to the same junior high as well.
Oh, yes, we went to Jordan Junior High. The name has been changed. I just can't remember it right now. But Burbank is a small town with a big studio persona. And we've got a lot to cover today about Stark's beginnings and, how he broke into the business. And we'll have an opportunity to hear about his film and series. So we're going to take a real quick break, and we're going to come right back. Great to have you on the show, Stark.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So we both grew up in Burbank, California. Great town, great schools, a couple high schools, a couple Catholic schools, a group of elementary schools. And, Stark and I went through, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, junior high and high school. There's been quite a few celebrities that have attended our school as well. But today we want to talk about, really, how did you grow up in Burbank? Because I know that our parents didn't go to school together, and my mom and dad, my mother went to Burroughs and my dad went to Burbank High. They both came to Burbank at a very young age from Los Angeles. But tell me a little bit about how you grew up and about your family and a little bit about your background with your dad as an actor.
All right. Well, first of all, most people, when they ask what it's like to grow up in Burbank, I always just tell them to watch The Wonder Years, because that is pretty much it in a capsule. The junior high that was used, that was in the series called Kennedy, was actually our high school. So, we got to see lots of shots of my old high school, but it really was the Wonder Years back in the 60s. But my dad grew up in Anderson, South Carolina. My mom grew up in Gastonia, North Carolina, and they met in college. My dad then went into service, and he was always doing plays in high school. It was an all-boys high school at the time,
Wow.
And he was always in the plays. And then when he went into the service, he was commissioned on an aircraft carrier, and the aircraft carrier had an explosion. It killed hundreds of people, but it had to be dry docked in New York for months. And so my mom drove up to New York to be with my dad while he was dry docked. And I think that's kind of probably where he got the idea to move to New York after the service, pursue his acting. He went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Is that the way you say it in New York?
Wow. That's
Academy.
Yeah.
I can't think.
I think so. American Academy. And we both have to look it up, but that sounds right to me.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've even thought about it.
Yeah.
But he did plays as he pursued his career off Broadway, and then he finally made a Broadway play.
I didn't know that.
Broadway play. And then decided to make the big move to LA, which is where, TV and film is. So he had met Ron Howard's dad, Rance Howard, in New York, and they became friends. Rance had already moved out to LA to start working on the Andy Griffith Show, probably of many other things, since Clint was in The Music Man and all these other movies when he was really young.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
So then they reconnected in California when we moved out there in 61.
Oh, so you were little.
Yeah, I was 3 when we moved. we first moved to North Hollywood, and then about a year or two later moved to Burbank when we bought a house. We started in an apartment and then bought a house in Burbank.
What street did you live on in Burbank?
Houses.
I have to ask.
Well, when we first moved to Burbank, I lived on Naomi between Clark and Magnolia.
Okay.
Right across the street from Kent Jeffries and a few other people. I can't recall at the moment. And then in sixth grade, we moved to Lamer between Alameda and Oak. And that's basically where I went to high school.
Yeah, you were down by our junior high.
Like literally a block and a half from Walt Disney Studios.
Okay.
Which is interesting. When I started working at Walt Disney, it was very surreal because I'd always seen the studio a lot from the other side, riding my bike by it or walking, even sneaking into it once in junior high.
On Alameda?
Yeah, with a few, junior high buddies.
Oh, fun.
And but then when I got a job there, I got to see all these things that I had seen, like there's a Methodist church there, but all from the perspective of inside the lot, which was very weird. It wore off pretty quickly, but that first day, just kind of doing my orientation on the lot, I thought it was a pretty big deal.
Was the Methodist church a backlot church, or was it a real church?
No, it was it was right there between Keystone and I don't know, Myers or something. But it's right on Alameda. It's still there.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
So I just remember seeing that because it's a tall steeple, and I'm like, wow, I've never seen it from that perspective.
I've never seen it from that perspective. I worked was a temp at WED, the acronym Walt Disney.
Oh, yeah.
It was where, the Imaginaries, they were working on Epcot back then. It was early 80s. So that was fascinating.
Yeah, fun fact. When I was in 1969, me and my older brother went out to visit my uncle who lived in Orlando, Florida. And we were driving down the highway, and he said, "Look over there, kids. That's going to be Disney World." It was just a big swamp at that point. Actually, the most important part of that was I got to literally see the flames from Apollo 11 as it blasted off.
Wow.
So, and then of course we sat
Cape
around,
Canaveral, right?
And we sat around and watched TV at night. But
yes, 69.
We ran out in the backyard, from Orlando, you could still see that flame go up in the sky.
That is unbelievable. I know from reading history books, Walt Disney acquired that land many, many years ago.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't there in 69.
So what were you doing when you started at Walt Disney? What kind of work were you doing then?
Well, that we can kind of get into that when we talk about my career, because that's not a short story.
Yeah, go on.
But anyway, growing up, my dad was an actor. He was a character actor, so he just did. I mean, I guess you could define his career by the classic era of TV. I mean, he was in everything from Lost in Space, Dennis the Menace, The Munsters, everything. I mean, if
all of our favorite shows.
You'd see all those. And then, just throughout my year, junior high school, he was just in stuff. Yeah. And so that was, interesting. He and Rance Howard, Ron's dad, were writing partners. So when they weren't working, because Rance was a character actor as well, and they'd kind of go up for similar parts. They're about the same age. And when they weren't acting, they were writing. So they had written a lot of scripts together. We used to go over, in the summertime when there's no school, my dad would drive over to the Howards, and he and Rance would write all day, like 9 to 5. And Clint and I and my older brother would just figure out ways to, have fun.
And for our audience,
drive home.
Our audience, just got to let you know that, he's talking about Rance Howard, Ronnie Howard, and Clint Howard's father. A lot of people aren't from Burbank in our audience. So that's so funny. That was just a typical day in the life for the Howells and the Howards.
Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard the stories from Clint's, actually from the book and from Clint's perspective on interviews and things that, because my dad was an actor, I guess, I didn't really pry into Clint's job, and I wasn't infatuated by it much. And I think that was probably why Clint hung out with me and my brother, is because we weren't his friends for any other reason than, our dads were friends and we got along. And because I think Clint has mentioned on an interview, he can sniff it out pretty quickly when someone is just trying to, use him or, be his friend because he's famous. And I literally never asked him anything about what he worked on lately, where he's been. I only found all that stuff out when I read the book, The Boys.
That's amazing.
I found out what all the cool stuff Clint did when he wasn't playing wiffle ball with me. Had I known, I probably would have been pretty jealous, but we were just basically regular neighborhood kids. He wasn't, and Ron the same. I didn't look at him as there's Opie or anything.
Yeah.
It's weird when you're a kid. You don't ask, your parents how much they make for a living.
Yeah.
None of those things come into play. You just want to hang out and have a good time.
Well, you and I grew up when a lot of our classmates' parents were working in the business, like, Ronnie and Clint and your dad. And it wasn't until much later in life I learned that, goodness, one of my dearest friends, Brookie Henderson, her dad, Bob Henderson, was doing sound on Hogan's Heroes, and then he ended up nominated for Oscars working with Clint Eastwood and Sylvester Stallone and others, in the late 80s, 90s. So there was we were in a business town.
Yeah, I didn't find that out till much later either, through Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
That someone's a wardrobe person. My uncle was a lighting director at NBC for like 40 years. It's just kind of, you either worked at Lockheed, which was the
right. Yep, my uncle did.
Made a lot of war planes.
Right.
You either worked at Lockheed or you worked in the business. So
yeah, worked in the studios.
It wasn't a big deal. I don't.
Well, I didn't. My mom pulled a limousine up one day. I was in, I think, 11th grade, and my mom worked in the studio. She did props and wardrobe, and then she got her driver's one of the licenses that you needed. And next thing you know, she's picking up Fred Astaire, Barbara Eden, and Billy Barty, and driving them out to Simi Valley for a film called The Amazing Dobermans, and that was a gig for a couple of months. So.
Yeah, you just never know what's going to pop up in Burbank.
Oh my gosh! So
I mean, even my little league teams were sponsored by celebrities. I actually in '71 I went. Clint talked me into playing little league in Studio City because he had played the year earlier and really had a good time. Him and Scott Green. So I went, and I was always in Hat Minor at Burbank. I went to Studio City. And the team that I got on was the Bob Hope Indians.
No kidding.
So Bob Hope was our sponsor. Oh, before that, actually, when I was 8 years old, my first Little League team was sponsored by Dean Martin.
Oh my gosh!
We were the Dino's Demons, and one of the moms worked at NBC probably on the show. I can't even remember now.
Yeah.
And she got the sponsor, but she also got us a gig on the Dean Martin variety show.
My goodness.
So Joe Taylor and Pat, I think it was Pat McDonald. A few others.
Pat, yeah. Mike and Pat.
There's like 8 of us there.
Yeah.
And we were on the show, and he sang us a song. And I've looked for that clip, online, and I can't find it. But I'd love to find it.
That's classic. My dad played fast pitch. He played ball, younger, but he played on the Carl Shoes, and his dearest friend was Bill Reynolds, Debbie's brother. So Carl was Harry Carl of Debbie's, I think, second or third husband, and so it was the Carl Shoes, and they were always out at Debbie's place in Palm Springs during the summers. But I mean, that's for our audience, that's how we grew up.
Debbie Reynolds and Connie Stevens both sponsored Little League teams. They were the Debbie Reynolds Mohawks and the Connie Stevens Mohawks. I was not on those teams. They were the older kids, but I was.
Well, I was a little girl at Connie Stevens' wedding to oh goodness gracious, James Stacy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So look at it. We could go around and around on this. People are going like, who are they talking about?
I know.
It's just growing up in Burbank, right?
But that's, when I do these events for the Mayberry Man movie, that's what they want to hear about. They don't necessarily want to hear about me. They want to hear about what was it like growing up with so-and-so, or what was it like doing this. They want to, it's very interesting to a lot of people, and it's kind of just every day to us. So,
well, and every time you and I have had conversations, there are more stories that get unveiled. I mean, on who we knew
true.
and you know, what our friends' parents did for a living, and it's fascinating. And people do love to hear the stories. Sometimes people don't get the stories. Like they're like, huh?
Yeah.
Are they telling stories?
Down. I still stop or look and watch people that are shooting a movie or a TV show in town or out here in Santa Clara. I'm still kind of a geek when it comes to film sets and just the whole process of TV and film.
No, I love that. I love that.
I was going to say, I only went to watch my dad shoot something a couple of times. Well, once.
Really?
Twice. Once was Here Come the Brides, which was a show in the late 60s with Bobby Sherman. And
oh, my goodness. I remember that.
he was a regular on that, so he went there every day. And one day he took me and my older brother on set at Columbia Ranch on Pass. And it's just kind of a weird experience. It was just a bunch of adults, a lot of cursing, and oh, your hope, son. It was just kind of weird. But the other time, he was doing a kung fu, and back in junior high, kung fu was really big with at least the boys.
Yeah.
And so I said, Dad, and they were shooting out in Malibu Ranch, and I asked him if I could come out there, and I had a car at that point, but. So I went and watched him shoot that, and he's riding horses and stuff. And I saw James Carradine.
Oh my goodness!
But I was disappointed because he had a crew cut, and he always had long hair on Kung Fu, and I always was envious of his long hair, right? So, and it was like, for whatever reason, he had a crew cut for this episode. He must have worn a wig then if he had a crew cut one week and he's got long hair the next. But anyway, that I only gone a couple of times. I wish I'd gone more in hindsight. My dad passed away in 97.
Oh.
But I wish I had gone more or shown more of an interest. What was it like? I should have given my dad the what was it like questions. But I never really did.
And I'm sorry that you didn't get on set with him more with all of the work that he did. Strong IMDb. Do you have all of the containers of his body of work, scripts he'd worked on?
Yes and no, not all of it. I mean, a lot of it you can find online, especially now with the new streaming stations that are streaming.
Yeah.
Like, I just saw a Webster that he was on that I hadn't seen in a while. One night I was actually up late. No, everybody else was asleep, and I had a movie on, a James Garner movie.
Oh, I love him.
Marlowe was the movie, but I wasn't really listening to it. I was doing something on my computer, and then I hear this voice that unmistakably my dad's voice, and I look up, and he's in this movie. I had no remembrance of him being in that movie. And it was kind of one of those surreal moments where, you look around and you wanted someone to be sitting next to you. It was like, hey, that's my dad.
Isn't that amazing?
The voice was a dead giveaway, and when I looked up, there he was.
There was your dad.
So every once in a while, I'd just be randomly watching TV with my kids or whatever, and an episode of my dad's would come on. Hey, your dad's in this one, or your granddad's in this one.
Well, what was the character he played on the Andy Griffith Show?
He played Dud Wash. That was the guy that married Charlene Darling of the Hillbilly Family.
Oh my gosh!
And he was in 2 episodes. And it's a pretty popular episode. It's kind of always in the top 10 episodes of the 100 and whatever they've done.
Yes.
So he kind of got lucky on occasion. Like he was in a Brady Bunch, and he was in the Brady Bunch where they went to the Grand Canyon.
Now I'm surprised you didn't go to that set to see all the girls.
So he's in a memorable Brady Bunch episode. But what's weird is Brady Bunch is on Amazon Prime right now.
Really?
But the Grand Canyon episode is season 3, episode 1 and 2. My dad was in episode 1. And if you go to Amazon Prime, they don't have episode 1 on there. I have no idea why. Especially being a 2-parter, you think they'd have both parts, but they don't have episode 1.
That's frustrating.
So I can't see him I've seen him in the Grand Canyon episode many times, but it's fun. He did a Wonder Years. He did
a Wonder Year?
He did a Wonder Years.
Oh,
that was one of my favorite shows.
I did not know they filmed that at John Burroughs.
They shot the exteriors at John Bros and a
Okay.
few interiors, like the
Got it.
courtyard area once in the
Uh-huh.
very early episodes.
Yes.
And then they shot the baseball field where they're playing baseball.
Yes.
But the interiors, even the interior field, outside playground is, I think, John Muir
Did they
up on the
film
hill.
in like Sun Valley area, the house up in
No,
those
the
kind of
house is
hills?
actually right up the street from McCambridge Park
I did know that. Did not know
on
that.
University.
On
So,
University.
and it looks the same. It's a different color, but it
Uh-huh.
looks exactly the
Oh
same.
my gosh. I loved the Wonder Years. I really did.
Yeah.
Did your mom, was she in the business at all?
No, she worked for radio stations most of the time.
Oh,
She was like, she called it traffic. Not the traffic report, but it's called traffic. And I never understood what she did, but she sat at a desk and had a typewriter, and she was in traffic, whatever that department is.
well, she's
So the,
adorable.
the upside of that is
Yes.
that she used to get concert tickets for free and albums and tapes. They're all promotional. You get, they come with holes in them.
Yes.
All I would have to tell her is what I want, and she'd put a request in, and they'd get them for me. So I never had to buy any albums or cassettes. So that was kind of nice.
You had some cool parents. We're gonna take a real quick break right now, Stark, but we're gonna come back. I want to hear more about the film that you worked on a couple years ago, Mayberry Man. I want to hear the concept of how that came into being. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Captain's Table with our guest today, Stark Howell. So, Stark, tell me, how did this concept of doing a film paying tribute to the Andy Griffith Show come about for you?
Well, I guess before we go there, we have to back up to even how I was able to do it skill wise.
Okay.
Because I did not start off in live action. I actually started off in animation.
Because,
And that was kind of through the side door, kind of,
yeah,
because I always had art ability. So I went to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena.
I know it.
It's a pretty illustrious school. So I felt like I could get training. And right before I started that, I got married. So my wife was able to help support us
While
as
you were
I
in
went to
school.
school.
Yeah.
It was a full-time school.
That is
It
a
was,
prestigious school. I did some, I would say, worked with some photographers there, did some
yeah.
modeling. I got to build my book. They got to build their book. So there was a lot of collaboration done at that college.
Yeah, very hard to get into and very a lot of work. The classes are 8 hours a day, one class, 8
Oh
hours.
my gosh.
And then you have 5 different classes, one each day for 8 hours. So it's very intensive. And at the end of my semester, Disney was recruiting, because they come, everybody recruits at the end of the term, and they have a very good transportation department, so car
Yes.
design. So back then it was all the Michigan car manufacturers, and everyone would come out and recruit for that. But the Disney happened to be there recruiting, and a friend of mine told me about it. So I went and showed my portfolio.
And in your
And
portfolio, what did you have? What was it?
well, I
Animation,
think
art?
no, not at all.
Oh,
Because I was an illustration major. So there
okay.
were illustrations, but there was a lot of figure drawing. And figure drawing is kind of like to a piano player doing scales. I mean, if you can draw the figure, you can pretty much draw anything, because the figure is very complex. There's a lot of problem solving you have to do
I never heard
with
of it.
size relations, shapes, light, form, whatever.
Okay.
So what I ended up getting, what it was they were looking for 6 artists for a training program they were putting on, which today they would never do that. They wouldn't spend the money. But it was a 6-month paid training program. I didn't even know what it was they were looking for, but they liked my portfolio. They hired me, and I found out it was for a storyboard training program.
Oh, wonderful.
And the guy that hired me, before he before I accepted, I said, I just have to let you know, I know nothing about animation. I mean, I didn't go to Cal Arts. I didn't grow up. I wasn't a cartoon comic book guy at all.
Uh-huh.
I said, I don't know anything about anime. Oh, don't worry. We'll teach you all that.
Oh
you can draw. That's what we're looking for. So I'm like, okay, sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
So I started this training program, and that is really where I learned everything about filmmaking, because storyboarding for animation is no different than storyboarding for live action, other than they're cartoon characters.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to tell a story. You have to read a script. You have to, except it's actually harder, I think, because as a storyboard person, now you have to act out the actors, because the actors aren't real. They're just cartoon figures.
Right.
So you get a voice track. The actors have already recorded their voices. So you get to read the script, listen to the voices, and then it's all you at that point.
And
you
then
have to decide where
creating, you're creating the characters?
No, you don't. The characters are designed. The props are usually designed.
Yes.
The backgrounds are usually designed. So you have your environment. You have your locations. You don't have to use the exact drawings they give you, but at least you know what the room looks like. You know what's in it. You have that. You have your characters, their size relationships related to each other.
Yes.
You have props, and and now you have to create a movie set on paper. Decide where the camera goes, decide when people walk in, when they don't walk in. The perspective has to be right. I mean, it's really probably one of the hardest jobs there is. And therefore, that's why they wanted to train people to do it. You just can't walk off the street and do it.
So in a 30-minute, so would it typically be like a 30-minute animated film, or 1 hour? And then
22 minutes.
Okay. How many pages would be how many pages on a storyboard would be a part of a 22-minute segment show?
Could be 200 to 300 pages of 3 panels. So you're looking at 800 panels of drawings. And so what I did is once I went through the class, they offered me a job, and then I had to join the union, the Screen Cartoonist Union.
I didn't know they had that. The Screen Cartoonist Union.
Local 839, and I'm grateful to them, because I just retired from animation, and I'm now collecting my pension, which you get with the union.
Because you had all the hours, right?
All the hours. They report your hours, and I did that for 30 years, and so and my medical is covered for life.
See, so that is unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I did not see that coming. I didn't know what I was going to do, because when I graduated, computers hadn't really come into play, but they were just starting, and like movie posters and things were not being drawn anymore or painted like they used to back in the 70s and 80s. They were all being done with photos and collaging and Photoshop, which was something new back then. So I didn't know what I was going to do, fortunately, and it was definitely providence that all these things had to really come together for that to even happen. So I started at Disney as an apprentice.
Okay.
And within, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, I became a full-fledged storyboard guy. And there's tiers of payment with that.
There was what?
And my first real on my own storyboarding was Aladdin, the TV show. If that dates it, about 92 or 93.
Okay.
And then I just continued on working for. I was working on. I left Disney, went to Film Roman, worked on Bobby's World, which was a Howie Mandel project, which I loved. From there, I did some freelancing, did some Spider-Man, and I got a job as a director on Hey Arnold in the late 90s.
Yes.
And I directed those. I left there, did some more freelance. Then I got a job at Disney, back at Disney. Yeah. And so I was storyboarding Recess for a few years. Stayed there for several shows, Stitch, the TV show.
I remember that.
And then I went and did a direct-to-video project. So basically directing and storyboarding. Even as a director, I still like to storyboard.
Yes.
So you do that for 30 years. that's a lot of scripts, because basically when it's an 11-minute show, every 6 weeks I got a new script. Actually, even a 22-minute, because on a 22-minute show it would be split between two people.
So are you using pencils, paint?
Back then, paper, pencils, and erasers.
Colored pencils or regular?
No, just regular graphite pencils.
Graphite pencils. Did you have like a pencil? You know how when we were in school as kids writing cursive, did you have like a dent in your finger from drawing?
Yeah, for sure. I got a callus. Basically, it wasn't even a dent; it was a callus. So it's a lot of that was the fun. That was fun because when you finished a board, you had a stack at least an inch and a half thick of your work.
Yeah.
Nowadays, everything's digital. You never see it. It just goes through the system. But it was fun back then because you actually, I really felt like an artist. I was creating artwork.
Yes.
I'm not, when we transitioned, I think it was the early 2000s, Disney, I was at Disney and we officially transitioned to digital. It was a tough transition because now they didn't, especially back then, it didn't have the pen capabilities aren't what they are today. The sensitivity so it was kind of like you went from drawing with a pencil and shading and easing the pencil into it to
using a mouse
with a felt tip pen. No, you're using a stylus.
Gotcha. A stylus.
It was black or it was nothing, and it's like really hard to adjust because none of us drew that way.
Interesting. Very different. Were you still living in Burbank during this part of your career?
No, I moved from Pasadena to Santa Clarita in 91.
Okay, in 1991.
Which was right after I started at Disney. Because they signed me for a 5-year contract. So I knew that I had employment for 5 years. So it was you can take that to the bank and
absolutely. I know. I had one of my acting coaches, Jonathan Lipnicki, famous young actor with the Tom Cruise film. He had said that if you got one series, you were waiting to get to be a regular, and then you could think about maybe putting a down payment on a house.
Yeah, it's feast or famine for sure.
Yes.
So I was very fortunate that, and it paid really well, and I felt somewhat guilty that I get to go and draw cartoons all day and make that kind of money. It just didn't seem right, and there's policemen and there's firemen, and they probably didn't make as much as I did, and they're risking their lives, and I'm drawing silly cartoons. But that's the entertainment industry.
Well,
right?
That's the business, and all of you guys have pensions. Yours is from the Cartoonist Union.
Yeah, so that was good, and that was really I was always a live action guy, kind of working in animation, and because it paid so well and it was consistent, I really didn't feel like I could make a transition into live action and start over. So I was kind of stuck because I started having kids. I've got 6 kids, so in '92 I had my first, and it just kept coming. So I could not really leave animation, even though my heart was really in live action, probably due to my dad and just seeing his world. But I just couldn't do it. I had too many responsibilities to go run off and make a movie.
I didn't know you had 6 children.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. What a blessing.
So I stayed in animation.
Yeah.
But my last gig, which was in 2019, lasted till about January, February of 2020.
Right.
And and I had no other job lined up at the moment, and COVID hit.
Yeah, and you didn't know pandemic was right around the corner. Who would have known?
Right. But I was writing a screenplay.
Okay.
And that's what became Mayberry Man. And how that happened was I was talked into going to one of these Andy Griffith Show festivals. And there's one in North Carolina that hold every year called Mayberry Days. And a friend of mine.
Is that in Mount Airy where Andy's from?
Mount Airy, yeah.
Okay.
It's in Mount Airy. And a friend of mine, a surfing buddy of mine, whose father was also an actor, he was Duke Slater on the Gomer Pyle Show. So his dad had been going to these festivals. And my dad used to go to the festivals when he was alive too.
Oh my God, they've been around that long.
thought much of it. Well, my friend says you should go to the festivals and sign autographs for your dad.
Yeah. Was your dad in the festival?
Not this one.
Okay.
He used to go to one in Ohio.
Okay, gotcha.
Back before he passed away. And I thought, no one wants to see me. And he's like, oh, no, you don't get it. Go. I had some publicity photos, of my dad from the show. I have like 4 different ones.
Yes.
My dad had them, and he used to sign them as autographs back in the old days.
Uh-huh.
And so he had a bunch of them left over. And, part of his treasure trove of memorabilia of his career. And I thought, well, I got 4 photographs. I could go, I suppose, and sign me. I don't know why anyone would want me to sign it.
On behalf of your daddy. Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, he got me an invite. They flew me out there.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, he even said, before you go, just be prepared. It's going to be a week long of just nuttiness and fanatic. It's like it'd be like a Star Trek convention.
Exactly. I was going to say the same thing. Trekkies.
And so I said, okay, I'm ready. And I had no idea. I mean, it was nonstop. An Andy Griffith Show.
Oh.
And I meet the fans, and of course they want to know about my dad because they know the show, they know his character.
Uh-huh.
So I'm kind of
they know Dead Wash.
Legacy celebrity, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, and I'm scheduled to do autograph sessions.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm supposed to be in the parade. So I'm feeling a little weird sitting at this table and people walking around looking at the photos. And I'm feeling like, what am I doing here? Because at the other tables, there actually are some of the people that were in the show.
Right.
And there's some that weren't, but I was new to it all. So I was just kind of experiencing it. I had a bird's eye view of everything, the fans, the interaction. And then the parade comes. I'm in the back of a pickup truck and I'm waving to thousands of people on the street.
Your dad must have been looking down from heaven on you with a big grin.
I don't know, man. It was weird, but they don't know who I am, right? But on the side of the truck, it says Stark Howell, son of Hoke Howell.
Oh my goodness, Stark.
So they look at me and they're waving at me and they're smiling, and then I can see they're confused, and then they read the truck and they're going, oh, hi. So that was very surreal. So what that did was it gave me an idea for this screenplay to do sort of this fish out of water story about a guy that goes to one of these festivals.
Well, listen, we're going to take our final break for our sponsors. And this is a perfect time to do that because I want to come back and hear how these next steps are for you, waving in the Andy Griffith Tribute Parade. Hold on. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Captain's Table. We are enjoying talking to Stark Howell today and learning about his life growing up in Burbank, California, and stories about his father, Hoke Howell, and the Andy Griffith Show. And we just learned that Stark was actually in Mount Airy, North Carolina, in the tribute parade. What is the name of the parade again that they had?
It's called Mayberry Day.
Mayberry Day.
It's a week-long festival,
Oh,
the last weekend in September.
I love that. So please go on. You were signing autographs and in the parade.
Well, I was doing all that, but I was also seeing some of they have the Andy Griffith Museum there, which has a lot of artifacts from the show that were donated. Andy Griffith gave a lot of props and things to his best friend who lived in Mount Airy, and then his best friend donated them to the museum. So there is a lot to see there. Andy's hometown, his childhood home is still there, and so you can see that. So I just was throwing this idea out to Greg because he went as well with his dad, of course. And
yes.
I said, I got an idea for a screenplay, and then I kind of ran through kind of what I was thinking, and he thought it was a good idea. I'm going to write this. I said, so at the end of the festival, we're having a dinner with a bunch of people. One of them was Charlene Darling. She played, Maggie Peterson, who played Charlene Darling.
Oh my goodness.
Opposite my dad. She was there.
Oh.
the composer, Earl Hagen wrote all the music for the Andy Griffith Show, as well as many others, Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah, he was really popular.
And he passed away, but his widow was there as well. And then a few other people, random people. Greg's dad was there, and we're just talking. And then Greg, sitting next to me, says, "Hey, Stark, tell him about your great idea for this movie."
Oh my goodness, there you are.
So I kind of give him a little elevator pitch, and they all thought it was, "Oh, that sounds really cute." Yeah. And then I'm sitting right across the table from Laura Hagen, which is Earl's widow. And I said, I didn't know this at the time, but I said, yeah, but boy, it would be great if we could afford to, get that music would be awesome. But I don't know how I would get it. And she looks at me and she goes, "Why not? I own it."
Oh my goodness.
And so just right then at the table, she'd offered license free, because she licenses that music anytime that's used. It's a licensing fee. And that's kind of the Mayberry spirit is kind of what I wrapped this story around. And that's kind of the Mayberry spirit. The fans mingle with the celebrities. There is no difference between, it's just very down to earth. It's very much Mayberry.
It's very Mayberry. Mayberry Burbank.
Yeah. So she offered the music, and I thought, well, I'm going to hit her up if I ever finish the script.
Yes.
I asked the guy that does Floyd, Alan Newsom. He's been playing Floyd he's a tribute artist. He does the Floyd character for 20-something years. And I asked him, I said, if I write a movie, do you think you could act in it? I said, not necessarily as Floyd. I know you can do Floyd.
Yes.
But can you, with a camera and hitting your marks and learning dialogue, do you think you could do it? Because I needed the glue to hold this story together. And he was sort of the MC of the event, and he's sort of the figurehead.
Floyd the barber.
And so I said, but I need that. I need you. Do you think you can do it? Yeah, I think I can do it. So I went home after that whole experience.
And you'd never written a screenplay before, correct?
I had, yes.
Okay.
I have another screenplay that I'd like to do.
Okay, I'm with you. Okay.
But yeah, and while I was working at Disney reading scripts, I was also taking writing classes.
Okay,
writing screenplays.
That's what I wondered.
Because until you know how story works, it's hard to be like doing storyboards if you don't know how stories work. So I wanted to learn every aspect of storytelling or filmmaking, and didn't apply that to my animation. So I already kind of had those for what I couldn't make my living as a screenwriter, but I could write a screenplay. And so I started writing it. I found out later that Alan Newsom, when I asked him if he would do it, he told his wife, he said, people come to him all the time with ideas and they never follow through with them. So he had no hopes that I would ever finish it anyway.
Right.
So when I did send him the script that I finished it, he was kind of surprised. and he said, yeah, but a lot of people write scripts, it'll never get made. So he in other words,
it was one other step, the next step.
No, he just wasn't expecting anything. So to his surprise, we ended up making the movie, and he did star in it. But I started writing it, and COVID had hit, so nobody was doing anything. So it was a perfect opportunity for me to bang out this script. And then I also thought that because it's got such a strong fan base, that maybe we could crowdfund it and do like a Kickstarter campaign, and the fans can, be a part of it. And I've seen other films that were crowdfunded that way, and the different perks you get for contributing. And so I contacted my younger brother, Court, who is a producer, and I asked him if he would want to produce it. And he's the business side. I can't do the business part of it.
Okay.
So he got involved, and he's a marketer, and he does things like that. So we came up with a campaign for a Kickstarter. We created perks. For a certain level, you could be in it as an extra.
Yes.
You could have a speaking part, etc. You could be executive producer at this level. And to say that it's easy to just put a Kickstarter on there and raise money is not true. It's a full-time job.
Well, and I
That's,
only know a little bit about it. I heard of crowdfunding, but I was had a little bit of opportunity to be a part of that crowdfunding with your series, and I was aware that there was a lot of work that court was involved in
yeah,
marketing your
it's a
film.
lot of work. Um, and we worked hard at it, and we raised $150,000
That's
through
unbelievable.
our fan base.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say the movie was really made for the fans and by the fans, they
Uh-huh.
really did finance it. I mean, we came up with a little money to offset that, but the fans really got involved, and they volunteered their time. They volunteered their cars, their homes. I mean,
What about the
their
town?
everything.
Did you have
So
to pay big fees for filming in the towns you filmed in?
no,
Location fees, I
because
guess that's what I was looking for.
LA and some of the other places that have a lot of shooting
Yeah.
uh, will will charge you, but we shot in Danville, Illinois, and Mount Airy, and we never paid for anything.
Wow,
I
that's
mean,
unbelievable.
literally nothing. Um, and we have a parade sequence in the movie that's got, I don't know, 25 vintage cars in it. I
Yes,
mean,
I
everybody
know.
just came out because they really loved the show. They really didn't know me or didn't even know what I was doing or if I could even make a decent movie,
Well,
but they loved the
they didn't
show.
know there's a camera on them.
Well, they probably
No,
did
yeah,
that, but
no. Another reason for a parade to honor Andy Griffith
well,
Show.
yeah. And yeah, that and that because it was COVID, they have a festival in Danville every year.
Yeah.
The Mount Airy Festival was canceled. The Danville Festival was canceled, and all the people that usually go to these festivals were sitting at home. So when we offered, hey, we're going to do a parade in Danville, we had people driving 3 or 4 hours away just come and be a part of it
And it was
because
outside
everybody's
too,
sitting at home doing nothing.
doing nothing, and it was a little bit safer being outdoors. Regarding
Yeah,
the
and we have some interior stuff, but I have to say we shot for probably 10 or 12 days there.
yes,
I had not heard of one person that got COVID.
yeah,
We
well,
had the COVID compliance officer, and we had to wear masks and do all the protocols.
yes.
But there's a lot of scenes with a lot of crowds that you can't be wearing a mask. So, but no one got sick that I heard of.
That's unbelievable.
Never came to me. So that was. It really is the Mayberry spirit is what was behind the movie. It was to pay homage to the series. I think the fans trusted me because of my dad was on the show,
Yes.
and I don't know why they trusted me, other than because I could have really embarrassed everyone.
Well,
I don't think I did, but
you had
they didn't know if I could make a movie. Making movies are hard.
tell us about the other
Even the big
tribute.
budget movies, there's some pretty bad ones out there.
No, I agree. You have
So I felt the
another.
responsibility to the show, to the fans, to put the Andy Griffith Show in the best light. And we never refer to it as the Andy Griffith Show. It's because we don't have licensing for that. It's the show.
The show.
And we don't mention Andy Griffith. We don't mention Ron or Opie or anything. So it's just about the tribute artists.
Tell me about the other tribute artists that you had. Not only did you have
every
Alan.
character on the show, except really for Andy.
Well, what about
there's a
Barney?
Rick Roberts does a great Barney.
He does a great
Floyd,
job.
We had Otis.
Yes.
There's even some that, unless you're a mainstream, you may not even pick up on. But there's a lot of fans that dress up. And so it was easy to tap into that. Hey, you want to be in it? Sure.
Did you also have a couple of the children of a couple of the stars in it?
Well, let's see. Oh, yeah. Well, were you just leading me to that?
Yes,
I forgot.
I am.
We did have Don Knotts' daughter.
Karen.
She was the only one that agreed to fly during COVID to do it.
Yeah.
Because everyone else, for good reasons, they have an elderly parent. They're elderly themselves. I know we wanted Ronnie Shell in it, but he's older than her, and he did. I understood he did not want to fly during COVID. But she made the trip, and she was a trooper,
That's
and
great.
so she's in it.
Karen Knotts.
Andy Griffith's daughter, Dixie Griffith, is an executive producer.
Okay, that's who I wanted you to talk about. Yes, Dixie Griffith.
Yeah, of course, she's a big supporter of the project.
It's wonderful.
She really likes what we're doing. And then, of course, Laura Hagen.
Yes.
So it's kind of like the trifecta. Those three are pretty important to the legacy of the show. And then we finished the movie. It's available a lot of places, but Amazon Prime, you can watch it. It's on Tubi.
Yes.
If anyone wants to see the movie, they can go to the website, mayberryman.com. And you can see it there.
Well, the movie is so wonderful. And everyone that I've talked to that has seen it, they're just so surprised. They're thought, gosh, I just didn't know what to expect, they would say. It just made me feel so good. It was just a heart.
A lot of people are a little skeptical because we're not trying to compete with the Andy Griffith Show. This isn't a remake of the Andy Griffith Show. Not at all. And I think a lot of people don't really know what it's going to be like, because it could never live up to that show. So they expect not to like it. But it's not about the show. No. It's about the spirit of the show.
It's about the spirit.
And the tribute artists. But yes, you can catch it on Prime Video, Tubi, iTunes, Google Play, Vudu, a bunch of other places.
Well, Stark and I, we have another fun fact. So not to give anything away, but I have a little bit of maybe an Alan Newsom type of story, maybe with the way Alan felt at first when you approached him. We were at our high school reunion. I won't say which one. A couple of years ago, and we were talking about your film that had just come out. And you said, "Oh yeah, it's going to get picked up for a series, and I might. I'm writing it right now." And I said, "Oh, I'd like to be an extra." And you go, "I don't know, maybe I'll write a little part for you." I'm like, "Don't bother doing that." And I went home and I didn't think much about that. And then you contacted me about 3 months later.
Well, I mean, I didn't write the part for you. I wrote the part.
Yeah, you wrote the part.
It would be good for it.
Yes. and so had to audition.
You are in the series.
Yes.
And we don't want to say.
We're not going to say anything
at this point, but
not
you
at
are
all.
In a speaking part. I mean, a regular role.
Had to learn my lines.
Whatever I can do for my Burroughs alone.
Our John Burroughs. I just need to keep going back to these reunions because, there's all kinds of wonderful people to collaborate with these days.
Well, I don't forget the little people. Anyway, so the movie has done well.
Yes.
It's got over 2 million views.
Wow.
So somebody's watching it. It's also on a couple of not domestic airlines, but international airlines. So if you're on a flight, well, you may not be now, but if you're on a flight to the Middle East, you can catch it on Emirates and Dubai Airlines. But,
oh my gosh, that's amazing. That is a lot of views. 2 million.
I actually had someone tell my son, "Hey, I was on a flight to Qatar and I saw your dad's movie."
That's unbelievable. And I had a friend that was in a hotel that was watching it. Yeah.
It does pop up.
So. It just pop up. So kind of, without giving anything away, what can we expect now with the series?
Well,
and then what else is new in your world? We've got about 3 or 4 more minutes.
Okay. Well, I wrote the series as a sequel, as a feature, and then our sales agent suggested maybe doing it as a series. So Court and I mulled that over and thought, it might be a good series. So we turned it into a series. I wrote some more. Your part was written after it became a series.
Okay.
It wasn't included. You were only referenced, but you weren't on camera. So I thought, wow, this gives me I can go into that world a little bit. So we wrote the series, we shot it. We are in the process of probably almost as we speak, signing a deal with a platform. Good. I can't say at the moment.
Nope,
but
don't say it.
Once we do know, well, we're looking, I think, at March or May. I can't remember. It's one of those M months of it being available. And once we know, we'll start,
promoting
that.
Very exciting.
But it's 5 episodes, and it really is. It's what happens after the movie. Like the movie takes place during a week-long festival for the most part.
Yes.
And this is sort of, what do these people at the festival do for their day jobs?
Yeah. What's their real life like?
And so it's all about the town. I felt like we need to let Mayberry, the town of Mayberry and its people kind of, stand on their own 2 feet without relying heavily on the Andy Griffith Show, and just kind of try to create some nice town, kind of Mayberry-esque. They're still Mayberry tribute artists, and so they're still but that's kind of where it went.
You've got new storylines in the series coming out.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3
this year.
New characters in it. All the same characters are in the movie that were in the movie are in the series. Nobody is not in it.
Yes.
And then we've added some characters. So we're excited to have people see it. You've seen it, and only the people that were working on it have seen the screening. But I think people will like it, and we're looking to do more. But we have to kind of let this hit the internet first and see what kind of response we get, and then take it from there.
Well, Stark, this is very exciting. I mean, you have just an amazing life. I really enjoyed learning more about how you grew up and the people that you worked with, and I just love the work that you're doing at the Art Academy in Pasadena, and that just led to the Disney career. And taking care of your dad and going out and signing some autographs, and look where it led you. This is wonderful, and so many people have got to be a part of the Mayberry Man experience, and will be forever grateful that I finally have an IMDb because of you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So tell us one more time how we can watch the film.
You can go to mayberryman.com,
okay,
or just search it on Amazon Prime if you have Amazon Prime.
That sounds great.
It's free.
So once the series gets out there, I'd love to have you back on as a guest and talk about the success of the film and the series, and then what you have up your sleeve for the future. So today, we're just going to wrap up this great time with Stark Howell. I appreciate it very much, Stark. And to our audience, just please follow us on thecaptainstable.com and on our Facebook and YouTube page. We sure appreciate those likes and comments and reviews on our shows. So thank you once again from the Captain's Table. Thank you, Stark. Everyone have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.